Welcome to the Darkstream, Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com, and unauthorized.tv. Before we get started, I had a personal request. So we have a guest today. Not a smart boy, but a smart girl. So she's a little bit camera shy. Hey. Shh. This is the birthday girl, our little princess. And so let me see if I can get her. Here, look up, sweetie. There we go. She's definitely a little bit camera shy, and it's her birthday today. She is, and you may remember she was actually on the Darkstream as a little puppy. So no, she's not a Vizsla. You can actually see her ridge right here. Here, sweetie, come here, honey, come here. It's okay. Here, come here. See, she's just a little bit shy. It's okay. See? Yeah, say hi to the people. It's okay. So, anyhow, yes, it is a Rhodesian Ridgeback. And I'm going to let her go here because she is not happy about this at all. But yeah, that's our little princess. She's actually I think she's probably still the smallest of our four dogs. It's actually kind of funny. We take them out, and the two Ridgebacks, she and her big brother, they like to play hunt the Vizsla. And so he is so wiped out right now. He's been sound asleep for the last 2 hours. So it's pretty funny. Anyhow, but yeah, they're very, very physically impressive dogs. I mean, you would not believe how fast they are, and they're really, really strong too. So, no, she's not a rescue. We picked her up from a breeder. She's a different breeder than her big brother. So anyhow, she's actually a little bit on the small side for a Ridgeback. Anyhow, they get along pretty well with other dogs in general. There's a couple, in particular, there's a friend of my wife who has a dog who comes over, and then another friend of hers has a beagle that, but yeah, it's, Ridgebacks don't shed much. And so, but they're not, Ridgebacks are not for everyone. It's not a dog I would recommend for a first time dog owner. I mean, you could see how just, even to hold her on my lap like that would have been completely impossible if she had really absolutely not wanted to be there. She was a little nervous. She didn't like it, but she wasn't absolutely struggling. She's actually she's got a really funny personality. She's got the most dubious expression of a dog you can imagine. She's always looking at you like, but it's good. And they're very protective. They're extremely protective. I'm a big fan of them. I wasn't familiar with them at all. My wife actually introduced me to the breed. She'd heard about them and was interested in getting one. And that was Aziza, and she was arguably one of the best dogs I've ever known. and fantastic with the kids. Great guard dog, great companion dog, um, tremendously loyal. And so, um, you know, I mean, it's kind of funny. And the Space Bunny's Ridgeback now, you guys know about Mizzy, how he's recovered and so forth, and and you know, I'm kind of the third wheel in their relationship. So anyhow, let's. Can we have one of your Vishlas on one of these days? Oh, I'm sure we can arrange that at some point in time. But let's get to the topic now, which is no one cares if you are a smart boy. And what brought that on is actually a series of different events with different people, and especially some comments on the blog that I found particularly annoying. And it's not just a gamma thing. Gammas do it, but people who are not gammas, who have a bit of a gamma strain to them, do have a tendency to do it as well. I think I probably had a tendency to do it when I was younger. I learned otherwise, but there's this urge, and it's especially on the part of young men with lower social status and above average intelligence, to somehow feel the need to demonstrate that they are smart boys. And no, that's fine when you're younger. You're figuring out who you are, what you are, that sort of thing. And it's very natural for people to identify themselves by whatever their stronger attribute is. Owen Benjamin is a height supremacist. Why? Because he's ridiculously tall. It's natural. If you're very good looking, then you are going to identify yourself by your looks. If you're intelligent, you will tend to identify yourself with your intelligence. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely normal, absolutely human. But when you mature, when you become an adult, then you need to start putting those things aside. You need to start being yourself rather than the exaggerated, polished version of your best attribute. And so, people say of me that I'm obsessed with my intelligence. Jordan Peterson claimed that I'm in love with my intelligence. Hang on. Sorry about that. Just missed the just missed muting it in time. My apologies. But the reality is that I don't have any need to demonstrate it. Generally, I am answering a question. When people ask you, what is your IQ? They're doing it because they recognize that you have an exceptional intelligence. They're curious to know exactly where it falls. When they perceive something, they want to know, okay, what is that? Help me put this in context. That's very different than what I'm talking about with smart boy syndrome. Smart boy syndrome is the exact opposite. Excuse me. Smart boy syndrome is when you are attempting to do something, or you're attempting to show something in order to convey or to correct the wrong impression that you believe people have. So, for example, when you get something wrong, now my throat's all dry. Anyhow, you know, I'll give you an example. This is the most quintessential "look at me, I'm a smart boy" thing. I'll put up a post, and it will have a reference to something. Maybe it's not the most obvious reference in the world. I'm not exactly known for spelling things out all the time, but it's not a secret. It's something that I would expect most of my regular readers to understand, to get. And so what the smart boy inevitably will do is say, for those of you who might not get the reference, you're just out of the goodness of your heart, running around explaining things to people who haven't required an explanation, haven't asked for an explanation. You're just proactively providing them with something that they may or may not need. This is ridiculous. It's not actually about helping people. You'll see the same thing happening when people make a mistake. Now I make mistakes on a regular basis. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Sometimes it's a legitimate mistake. Sometimes I'm not thinking through something. Sometimes I'm just utilizing shorthand. It doesn't matter. I don't worry about it. But what's this? I don't even see what people are talking about. Welcome, James McDonald. Let's see here. I have no idea what you guys are. I haven't even seen what you're talking about, so I'm not going to worry about it. We'll let the moderators deal with it. Anyhow, people like information, but they don't necessarily like the things that bring them information. And it's a mistake to focus on providing people information that they don't want. And so what you need to do is to understand that if people want information, they will come to you. There's no reason to thrust it in front of their face. This is another gamma thing. They're always sticking their bloody phones in your face. Look at this. I don't want to look at it. Why are you even bothering me? So, if your response when you can't do something or when you don't get something is to cite your high school GPA, your SAT score, your IQ, whatever, it's ridiculous. It doesn't change anything. If you get it wrong, you got it wrong. It's okay. But it's very important when it comes to matters of intelligence, matters of understanding, matters of wisdom. You have to show, not tell. if you can't figure out how to do something, you know what? Maybe you're not that smart. I was, there's a gradient of all of these things. You know, I am a technical retard compared to some of the programmers that I know. They can spin up a server and hack into a government facility and do all this kind of thing without blinking. I have to get specific details from them if I'm going to make sure that I manage to get the FTP sites. You know what you don't know. The need to prove to others that there's no need to point out the obvious. I was actually irritated today, and that's part of where this was coming from. Is I put up a post today, and it was just a bit of a joke in that I was quoting Dennis Prager talking about how, what did he say? It was an exceptionally stupid Dennis Prager quote. I don't think very much of the guy, as you know. So we have so much to teach, so much to share, so much light to shine upon a world that needs it, perhaps now more than ever before. Like what? Sodomy and cannibalism? What are these amazing truths that nobody knows that Dennis Prager has to share? Is he going to enlighten us? Satan worship? Well, no, they won't. I mean, not that the Chinese are necessarily living. They don't. Their civilization is a very old one. It's a very well-established one, but it is not Western civilization. It is not Christian civilization. However, they are smart enough to not fall for Dennis Prager's nonsense. And so anyhow, and this is also in the context of the Newsweek article that is trying to normalize cannibalism. Remember, there is no depth to which these people will not sink. There is no immorality that they will not embrace, because they are totally opposed to Jesus Christ. They're totally opposed to Western civilization. They're totally opposed to the good, the beautiful, and the true. And so anyhow, the Chinese are clearly much smarter than the Americans were about it. Americans were like, tell us your truth, Dennis. Tell us your truth, Dennis Prager. Share your light with us. And they said, well, let in 85 million foreigners and tell your little boys that they're girls and start sex trafficking all your young girls. And then everything will be good. I mean, it's so fundamentally, it's not just evil, it's so retarded. Who falls for this nonsense? How dumb do you have to be to fall for this nonsense? We're talking about a group of people that couldn't figure out flush toilets. If you're going to go in that direction, you're abandoning air conditioning. You're abandoning morality. You're abandoning indoor plumbing. All of those things are part and parcel of people who methodically pursued the good, the beautiful, and the true. And people who reject the good, the beautiful, and the true are going to be a bunch of naked Satanists living in filth, sodomizing children when they're not eating each other. That's what Dennis Prager wants. That's the world. That's the light and the truth and the knowledge that Dennis Prager has to offer. I mean, it's beyond awful. No logos, no civilization. No truth, no civilization. No beauty, no civilization. You know, do you think it's a surprise that people are literally dwelling in filth in California? You know, it's just asparagus person. But that's not what the PragerU brochure says. Oh, yeah, he's really that much of a reprobate. You know, they literally want to tear down Western civilization. Why do you think that Shapiro, why do you think Shapiro is trying to redefine what Western civilization is? They're trying to define Western civilization around them in the same way that Yoram Hasgoni is trying to redefine nationalism as something that depends upon Judaism. It's insane. You know, I mean, you wonder why these people don't want to have anything to do with me. Why they don't want to ever even, why Shapiro runs from debating me. They have no answer for this. None whatsoever. And their very pretenses are laughable. Absolutely and utterly laughable. But it's a kind of smart boy phenomenon of its own. But how long will the majority be on board with this LGBT stuff? Not very long. The majority isn't on board with it. You know, people think that everyone's on board with it because they're drenched in the media, which is controlled by 5 companies. It's a very, very small number of people who are pushing these lies. The majority is cowed, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's always been there's plenty of incidences in history where a minority briefly manages to take control of the institutions of government and so forth. But it never lasts very long. The pendulum always swings back. And we're at the end of one of the biggest credit booms and social mood bubbles in history. So we are swimming in idiocy. And so we just have to recognize that and wait for the inevitable consequences to come about. The gods of the copybook headings are coming back. You know, China gets it, Trump gets it, more and more people are getting it. And why do those within the U.S. Patriot movement push civic nationalism so hard? Well, it's because they're terrified of the reality. If you can't utilize the magic dirt to create paper nationalism, what does that mean? It means that there's going to be a very large-scale war, probably for years, possibly for decades and generations. But it's going to happen because you just see the way that California is deteriorating, Denver is deteriorating, you know, Detroit looks like it's been nuked. You know, most of the Patriot, actually above average size bears right, most of the Patriots don't support the nation. They support the state. Americans are so denationalized that they don't even know what they are. They don't even understand the difference between a nation and a state. The Chinese understand it. The Chinese consider you to be Chinese no matter what your passport says. You know, the idea that you have a piece of paper actually makes you something is ridiculous, especially when I know a guy who has 5 passports. Is he really of 5 different nationalities? Of course not. So, and this is just kind of funny. I'll enjoy showing you this just in light of the whole smart boy thing. I just enjoy this when it comes to people are trying to play the smart boy thing with me. So this was 3 years ago. It was 1 year after the release of SJWs Always Lie. And I thought it was kind of funny because you had this list of the best-selling political philosophers. There was me, John Locke, and Thomas Paine. So that was 3 years ago. Now, SJWs Always Lie is still the bestseller in political philosophy, ahead of, but the other names are Machiavelli, Plato. There's the sequel which came out a few years later. John Stuart Mill, Aristotle, Friedrich von Hayek. So I just find that kind of amusing when people try to play the whole smart boy game with me. I'm like, well, if you think that's going to work, go for it. Now, obviously, John Usari says, who is John Locke? Does he have a YouTube channel? He probably has more than 32,000 subscribers. You've only got 32,000 subscribers. It's funny. Welcome, Live Free or Die Bear. Anyhow, I just find it amusing. And just to be clear, I do not consider myself to be in Aristotle's league. Plato's maybe. I've certainly haven't had any trouble finding the holes in his logic. But it's always fun, reading somebody like Aristotle, where you just realize that they're out of your league, and it's difficult to. You have to read what they say 3 times to understand it properly. The mainstream right rolled out national conservatism because they know the right wing is awakening to nationalism and populism. They know that people are realizing the civic nationalist lies. Exactly. National conservatism is a fraud. It's a total fraud. I mean, national conservatism is being pushed by the neocons, or as I prefer to call them, the neoclowns. Do you know who the neocons are? They're the Trotskyites. They're the Bolshevists. They're trying to do the same thing in the United States that they did in Russia. They're literally trying to recreate a Soviet Union in the United States. Now, it's unlikely to work because the reason that they were able to, the reason that the Bolshevists were able to team up with a Russian people who did not like them is because they were able to promise the serfs land. The serfs were very, very badly abused by the Russian aristocracy, and so it was fairly easy for the Bolshevists to promise them something, which they had no intention of delivering, which they didn't deliver, but they were able to convince the Russian serfs and the Ukrainian serfs that they were on their side. And then, of course, they turned around and massacred tens of millions of them. That's what the neoclowns will do the way that they hated Russians. They still hate Russians. Why do you think there have been all the Russia stuff? Why do you think that they were trying to lobby for a war with Russia before Trump got elected? If Hillary had been elected president, there is a very, very good chance that the U.S. would have already gone to war with Russia. So, these patterns play out over and over and over again because all the same issues are still on the table. All the same cards are still on the table. It's all the same game being played over and over and over again. And that's why it's such a mistake to pay any attention to anybody who is a figure on the mainstream right, because you can't be a member of the mainstream right. You can't be authorized and tell the truth. You're not allowed to. They don't really care if people like me and Owen and whoever tell the truth. We don't matter. We're irrelevant figures that, a few crazy people. There's 800 people watching this. Nobody cares. What they don't want is they don't want 10 million people watching it and being convinced that it's true. But the truth is the truth. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what I believe. The truth is, I don't have a perfect grasp of it. No human does. But we understand it as best we can. And if we're honest, we share it in as unvarnished a manner as we can. That's what I believe that as Christians we're called to do. Now, I do believe that it is important to speak the truth in kindness. If you're, if your friend is having a bad day and he looks like he hasn't slept at all, there's no reason for you to tell him, hey, you look awful. You look like you had a rough night. That's true, but you're not speaking it in kindness. Let's see here. I should do some super chats here. Okay. Favorite scripture? Probably, probably either Ephesians 6:12 or the Psalm, "Lo, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me." Um, or strangely enough, uh, the the part about where Jesus tells his disciples, "Now the prince of this world is coming to kill me. He has no power over me, but dun, 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 dun." What I like about the last one is that Jesus is telling us what the true state of the world is. You there's not that many verses in the Bible that really give us that much of a clue as to what's really going on. I mean, we have less knowledge of what's going on in the spiritual world than we do of what's going on in the political world and the geopolitical world, and we know virtually nothing about what's really going on there. Um, we don't even know whether Jeffrey Epstein is actually dead or not, much less whether he did it himself or somebody else did it, and so forth. I mean, we have theories, we have ideas, logic indicates different things, but you know, we don't actually know. So I treasure those verses that give us a glimpse of that. Um, are you familiar with Emil Durkheim's work in sociology? Not even a little bit. Um, when is Tucker coming to unauthorized? Uh, I don't know that he is, but we would certainly welcome him. Uh, quick point of personal privilege. Can you please disavow Stefan Molyneux for being gay? Iamblichus, he, him. Um, well, I can't. I don't think he is gay. Um, and if I wouldn't disavow Milo, why would I disavow Stefan? Dan Weston says, just bought SJWs Always Lie. It's like a breath of fresh air after being stuck behind a school bus for an hour. Thank you. You're very welcome. That's certainly an intriguing review. um, but yeah, I'm happy. I'm very happy that people find uh, SJWs Always Lie to be useful even now, 4 years later. I mean, I'm not terribly surprised. I assumed that the narrative was going to become more of a problem rather than less of a problem as time went on. And certainly that has turned out to be that way. Um, if the world hates you, remember it hated me first. That's also a good verse to keep in mind. Um, if Tucker gets fired, he'll definitely come to unauthorized. Yeah, we'd be happy to have him. We'd be quite happy to have him. At the doctor's the other day, they asked me my personal pronouns. I said, call me whatever you want. I refuse to play that nonsense game. Yeah, I don't think I would be able to resist playing that game. Um, you know, if somebody's going to actually invite me to tell them what they have to call me, um, you know, I already I already confuse people enough when they say, "So, what do you do?" And I was in Spain, and for some reason, I just said, I said, "Well, I Dark Lord." They're like what? I said, "Well, I'm a." And my friend says, he's a Dark Lord. He Dark Lords." It was pretty funny. Um, oh, this is kind of interesting. Uh, Felis says, after watching and discussing yesterday's Alex Jones show with a customer, I loaned him a copy of SJW Always Lie. He called me this afternoon thanking me profusely and asking for the sequel upon its return. That's good. And no, I would not grow a mustache of my own. Um, yeah, I heard about Patrick Byrne. I don't really understand um, what the whole situation is there. It sounded very complicated and confusing, and I wasn't that interested. So, I mean, like I said, there's a tremendous amount of stuff going on that we don't see, that we don't understand, and a lot of it we wouldn't believe anyhow. Jack Cool says the most offensive thing to have happened to me in the army is not to have black females over me, but to have an Irishman tell me Americans don't exist. Oh yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. You know, um, but you know, we don't need. I mean, we see as though through a glass darkly. We don't need to understand in order to obey. We don't need to understand everything in order to do what we understand to be right. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to fail. We're going to give in to temptations. But we can pick ourselves up again. We can repent. We can be forgiven. And we can, you know, get back in the fight, remembering you got another quarter. You know, every time you lose that third man, you get another quarter. And the important thing to remember, like I said the other night, the reward for beating level 1 is not sitting around doing nothing. It's playing level 2. The more success we have, the more challenges we're going to have thrown at us. And that's just the way life is. It's never going to get uh, fundamentally easier. It might surprise us less. We might recognize the patterns more and be better equipped to deal with them. But emotionally, you just have to be ready for it. You know, I was out walking with the dogs today. It was a beautiful day. You know, it's one of those kind of days that P.G. Wodehouse wrote about. You know, the sky is blue, the birds are chirping, God is in his heaven, and all is right with the world. And you know, I would have given a lot for things to just stay like that forever. To be like that forever. You know, you're happy. It's beautiful. There's no pressing problems. Nobody is in pain. You know? And of course, being of the mindset that I am, I found myself thinking, okay, I wonder what the next challenge is going to be. You know, I wonder what the next attempted deplatforming or whatever is going to be. Because there will always be something somewhere for someone. You know, maybe we'll be left alone for a while. Maybe not. But, you know, we always need to remember that we have been fortunate beyond all reason if you look at how easy our lives have been compared to the average human life over most of human history, we have nothing to complain about. And so, um, let's enjoy the days of summer while we can. PS says trade wars heating up. First major escalation with today's tit-for-tat tariffs. China will keep escalating with Democrats citing end to chaos, aka surrender, real geopolitical hardball. Yeah, I mean, we've seen things heating up all over the place, and you know, the Merkel's Muslim invasion of Europe is crazy. 85 million foreigners in the United States, all of whom are claiming that they're just as American as you. Just as American as the sons and daughters of the American Revolution. It's total nonsense, but there they are. Satellite Jack says, any initial thoughts on the Overstock CEO story? Not really. I don't know enough about it to have an opinion. Defiance Bear says, a serious amount of difficulty is what I call a target-rich environment. Well, yeah. I mean, one of the things that is difficult for us is that we have a lot. We have so much more than anyone except for the kings and aristocrats of old ever had. I mean, even Louis the 14th, even the Sun King didn't have indoor plumbing and hot showers. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so unsympathetic to those who are attempting to tear down Western civilization, and why I'm just so openly contemptuous of them, because it's such an awful thing that they're doing to so many people. And it includes them too. I mean, it's a little ironic. Who do you think is better equipped to live in the world that Dennis Prager is attempting to bring about? Dennis Prager or me? Prager probably can't run 100 meters without collapsing of a heart attack. But that doesn't excuse what he's attempting to bring about. That doesn't excuse what he's attempting to share with the world. Yeah. Econ major friends tell me that tariffs never work, according to Econ 101. They're totally wrong. They don't understand economics in the slightest. In fact, it just depends on what the relationship between the countries are. Because the U.S. runs a major trade deficit with China, tariffs will automatically, by definition, cause the American economy to grow. Just tell them, I mean, first of all, tell your friend for me that they're stupid, and tell them that they don't understand Economics 101, and then tell them to explain to you what C plus I plus G plus X minus M means. What happens when M goes to 0? Does GDP increase or does GDP decline? This is not rocket science. Yeah, but see, this is typical of somebody who doesn't actually know what they're talking. The econ taught in universities is Keynesian socialism crap. Keynesianism is not socialism. Don't, again, don't be a smart boy. You're trying to be a smart boy. You don't know anything about economics, which is clear by what you just said. What I just said is Keynesian economics. Or, if you want to be precise, the Samuelsonian model based on Keynesian economics. C plus I plus G plus X minus M. That's how you calculate GDP. The whole point is anybody who understands Econ 101 and tries to say that tariffs are necessarily going to be bad for the economy because they reduce imports literally doesn't know the textbook Econ Samuelsonian Keynesian 101 stuff. All right? Vox, he says, I know I'm not smart. I'm just trying to learn. If you're trying to learn, then don't make statements. Ask questions. You made a statement about something that you don't know about. Don't do that. I've heard you explain that equation before, but do tariffs affect the other end of the equation? Is going to be much smaller than the reduction of M. Therefore, GDP will grow. Again, it's a basic mathematical relationship. It's not difficult, and I don't understand why people sometimes seem to have a hard time understanding it. Just plug in, take some sample numbers, plug them in, and see what happens. It will be very, very clear to you. Would tariffs promote local production? Yes. So, yeah, I mean, tariffs are designed to stimulate growth from within. And the interesting thing about Keynesianism, and most people don't realize this, is all it is a perverted form of Freudian psychology applied to economics. It's total nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And very few people know that because virtually no one has ever read the general theory. I've read it twice. If you bother to slog your way through it, you'll see what I'm talking about. So, yeah, Ian Fletcher's book is good. So, well, thanks for tuning in. That's all I've got time for tonight, since my battery's about to run out. But appreciate you tuning in. This will, if you want to see this without the dropped frames, it'll be up on unauthorized TV within about an hour. We should probably do a Darkstream on the general theory. I think that would probably be a good idea. So have a good evening. This is the Darkstream. Remember, no one cares if you're a smart boy. I'm Vox Day.